Before I forget it, Andreas sends his fondest regards. I talked with him this morning a few times, and he said, "What are you going to do today?" I said, "Oh, I don't know. I've got so many
Got
things going on." And
one of the
then there's
most
this,
important things in the world. You have to talk to
yeah,
Rob.
there's this obnoxious person from South Africa calling you from America. So no, what am I going to do? And he wants to talk about conservation when I want to build concrete highways. I don't understand this at all. So there we go.
Willy Pabst, I will say that it is, I'm trying to keep up with you. It's 6:00 in the morning here, and as I understand it, I read something the other day, Willy. I don't want to get your age wrong. How old are you, Willy?
21? No, I'm 81. Sorry, got 60 in the middle. What happened now?
So you are you're fine.
My,
Everything's fine. Everything's rocking and rolling.
I
No
thought
problems.
the picture went away. I pressed something that I don't know. Okay, no,
Well,
I'm 81, and
you are 81. You act like a 21-year-old. You've got the energy of a 21-year-old. You are a force of forces, Willy Pabst.
Well, you're being too kind now. That's too kind. No.
Well,
Look,
I'm trying to set you up because, as you said, the podcast goes downhill from here.
I'm trying to ignore the number and fight it hard. As you see, I've just come out of the shower frame, coming out of the gym, out of some conference calls this morning. But you've got to stay fit if you want to fight the fight that you and I both are committed to fight. So, yeah, absolutely. No problem.
Willy Pabst, introduce yourself to people, who you are, what you do.
Well, how long do I have for an introduction? I mean, at my age, of
as
course,
long as you want. That's the beautiful thing about a podcast.
Anyway, no, I'm born and raised in Hamburg, and obviously in the last few moments of the war. So I'm an after-war child, clearly somebody who was formed by that. My Jewish friends understand how I fight for them, and they're the understanding of what happened. If you don't understand what happened there, and you don't look at what goes forward right now in politics, then you have missed a great opportunity of learning for the future. I did an education in shipping and ship management and foreign trade in Germany, and that ends my formal education. And thereafter, pretty much everything I sort of taught myself, or had my partners or friends teach me. So at an early age, I went to South Africa because I didn't want to join the German army. And as you know me, I'm the furthest away from a pacifist. That's not the point. But after the war, wearing a uniform just wasn't on. I just didn't do that, and they weren't going to allow me in the Air Force. I said marching back to Moscow is not what was part of my goals. My father did that, or some of my forefathers did. We didn't need to do that. South Africa formed me, and I can spend hours and hours talking about it. But Africa's never left me.
Formed you from a wildlife conservation perspective?
From an African perspective, I mean, and that also is of course wildlife later on. Remember, I came out of here, and I'm in Cape Town right now in 1964, and I thought they all loved people from Hamburg. I didn't understand this because I walked around and it said they're hamburger and chips and hamburger and this, and I said they must love what's so great about us, until I figured out it's a meatball, it's a fricadelle. We didn't have those in Germany. Okay, I mean, I think it was in the 70s that the burgers came to Germany. Anyway, 65, I was invited on my first ever safari to the Okavango swamps. Almost tanked the beginnings of my career in sort of business as an employee, because I extended in the Okavango swamps from 2 weeks to 4 weeks on an unpaid basis. If impossible, please wire. And they wired, not acceptable, but where are you going to send a cable to me in the middle of the Okavango swamps? Okay, not doable. Anyway,
at that time, Willy, in the Okavango swamps, are you just purely ecotourism? Are you a hunter at this point? Do you think about hunting at this point?
No, I'm a hunter. I've been a hunter for a long time. Not a very intensive hunter. I mean, sort of like I go and I haven't shot anything for a year or two, which is just a question of time on Sango because I'm always involved in all kinds of politics and whatever it happens to be. Because I, as a foreign white man, can say a lot more in the country than a local white man. I mean, if I'd be Zimbabwean, I'd probably be spending half of my life in jail over there. But what are they going to do to me? But no, and I at the time in '65 when we went to the Okavango swamps, I wasn't a hunter. I'd had a gun in my hands and that sort of thing. But we went on the first ever supposed to be eco camera tourism thing with Bobby Wilmot. Bobby Wilmot was the crocodile camp, the man of legend, who looked like a bookkeeper and was one of the most courageous people. Remember, being courageous and being stupid are very close allies, if you will. And I've crossed that boundary many, many times. I'm wondering whether I was sometimes more stupid than courageous. But anyway, and he was a crocodile hunter. He hunted 2,000 crocodiles in the Okavango swamps every year, converted them into skins and hides for the fashion or whatever it is in Bulawayo, from there to Europe. And we shot, I don't know, 8 or 10 crocodiles. We shot 2 buffalo for the local water bushmen. The San also have apparently a branch that lives in the water, on the water. It was a very formative month for me. Amongst others, I learned water skiing. Needless to say, if you shoot a 17-foot crocodile at night, you try and water ski next day, you
Oh
will
my
stand.
gosh.
You
That is
don't fall
crazy.
in the water. Definitely not. So anyway, from that, if you will, I look at it today. If I look at my Sango in Zimbabwe, the root of all of that was that month in the Okavango swamps many, many years ago. That's when wildlife, nature conservation, the appreciation of the beauty that Africa has to offer, and then ultimately later on the dangers that we human beings impose on the nature that surrounds us, that started dawning on me and kept me going for a long time until I acquired Sango.
What? Well, let's start this. Where is Sango?
Sango is in the southeastern part of Zimbabwe, in the low veld, as they call it. And it was formerly a cattle ranch, started in the 1920s, went bankrupt 3 times, and ultimately hit the drought in the 91, I think 91, 92, a severe drought. I've seen one of those old 8 millimeter movies once. There wasn't a leaf on any tree. There wasn't a leaf or a patch of grass on the ground. If your zebras sort of walking, stumbling about, you could count the bones on the body. That was it,
Jeez.
and that was the last time. And that's when we formed the Save Valley Conservancy, and I bought the largest property was in.
Willie, at the time of you buying that property at Sango, given the climate that we live in today, what was the climate as it relates to, let me just start with the simplest. What was the climate as it relates to hunting? Because I'm assuming you bought Sango from a business perspective, knowing that you had to do some sort of activity for it to, I don't know, either break even, make profit, or maybe your mindset at the time was like, fuck it, it doesn't have to make a profit. I just wanted it.
Well, it was more like the latter. Fuck it, I don't want to make a profit from it.
Okay.
It was more philanthropic. It was
Okay.
definitely not an investment that was geared around making money.
Okay.
In fact, the investment climate at that time was still pretty good. They were trying to sell me a lease. I said ownership or nothing, so I got title deeds, and still have them today. And the German Zimbabwean investment treaty was being drafted and protects me today. So yeah, no, that's what it was from the beginning. But however, you need to have an activity that starts at least contributing towards what you're doing, and that was hunting. It was clearly hunting from the very beginning, and the whole scenario of hunting was well established and well recognized and didn't have a negative connotation as you have today.
Okay. In those formative years of Sango, and I'm setting this up purposely because I want to talk about what Sango is today and the
Mhm.
challenges that you have at Sango today. In the formative years of Sango, what was wildlife like? Did you have extreme, obviously with drought and climate change? I think a lot of people understand. Did you have vast fluctuations in wildlife, or you were just almost like we can always use more wildlife in those
I
formative
think,
years?
Robbie, I think it was pretty simple because of the cattle farm um, project, if you will. They had to kill all the elephants, all the lions, all the buffalo-footed mouse, and whatever it is, and all the leopards. They had decimated wildlife. Okay, so when I moved in, um, we had very little. Now a lot of that wildlife, and that's where whether you're religious or not, I'm probably not so much, but be that as it may, you're in awe of what nature does do to heal itself. And these animals, I mean, the zebras and the wildebeest and the impala and God knows whatever else came back. We brought in 560 elephants in the mid 90s into the Save Valley Conservancy. The IWF
Was
funded
it
us.
what you brought those elephants in there? Let me again. This is good context. You brought those elephants in there because there were no elephants,
There were no elephants, gone,
and
all
the
shot up.
elephants were not coming. They're not. You didn't think naturally they would return
We'd be too
at the
far
time.
away, and there were too many human settlements in between us and Gonorizu, for example. No, that wouldn't have easily happened, and it would have been a very, very slow process. Uh, and we brought in later on in 2000 and whatever, we brought in some lions from Malelangwe. We bought some Nyala in the late 90s, and we bred them up in Bomas because you need a certain number of Nyala, 10 or 12 Nyala. They get decimated by a leopard in no time at all. But if you got 50 or 60 in one group, that's survival. You understand all of that.
So the
So
elephants, when you brought the elephants in, the 56 elephants. Again, I'm trying to set context here. Okay,
mhm,
when you
mhm.
brought the 56 elephants in, was there any conversation at the time to say, is there a maximum amount of elephants that we want on this
Not at
property?
all. Not at all. And they were 560 elephants, not 56,
Oh shit, you
560.
brought 560 in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Holy shit.
Yes,
When? In this 90s?
in the mid 90s. Yes.
Was that the probably could have been the largest relocation of elephants period, right?
That's exactly what it was, and I still think it is today.
That is
And we had
insane.
no idea that we would not be able to expand the footprint of conservation of the Save Valley Conservancy.
Oh.
The population encroaches. We human beings take the habitat away. It's not the elephant's fault that there are too many and they're destroying our habitat. It's our fault that we are destroying their habitat. Basically what it is. And we've got far too many now. I mean, we are today, if you ask me, having lost land through political interference and all the rest of it in the Save Valley Conservancy, not on Sango, but in other parts, we are from over 300,000 hectares down to maybe operating 220, 240,000 hectares. We cannot expand because we've got humans on our doorstep. We probably have about easily 1,500 elephants too many. I on Sango have a carrying capacity of 0.3 per kilometer, which means 600 square kilometers, say 180, call it 200. I've got 950. The damage to our forest, I have a massive array of baobabs. The damage to those baobabs is 80% of the damage of them are damaged by elephants, and some of them are dramatic. I mean, I'm talking about trees that have a 30-meter circumference. I mean, that is massive. It's bigger than
Yeah,
the
I
room that
saw I
I'm
saw
sitting
the
in here.
pictures being obviously Dan came and visited you
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I saw some of
yeah,
those pictures and those trees are you have some enormous baobabs on your
yeah,
property.
yeah. Beautiful. We've got some people who come in, spend a week just looking at baobabs. And I can understand that. I mean, as you know, they're biotopes on their own, biohabitats on their own. Whatever lives in there is a little country. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Beautiful
yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
So, Willie, in your mind, so you have too many elephants, and that is not an uncommon thought process, paradigm, issue, challenge facing a lot of Southern Africa today. The idea that we have to save the elephant is an outdated mandate from the 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s, in which they needed to. You guys you even participated in it. Save the elephant in the mid 90s. Bring 560 elephants in. But the rhetoric needs to change. The idea of save the X needs to be now you're living it, sustain an ecosystem, but manage the X.
Yeah, here's how I see our elephants. When we went to CITES in Panama, 2 years ago or whatever it was, I stood up in front of 2,500 people and I said, and behind me I had, I4, Born Free, and some of those what I call criminal organizations, because I really believe these guys are criminal because the way they are telling lies about the reality of what happens on the ground. And I stood up and I said, excuse me, I don't understand this. We are arguing whether we can shoot or allow shooting of 0.2, 0.3% of our elephants. When we have a progeny of 5 or 6 or 7%, we in Southern Africa have about 150,000 elephants too many. And if I define Southern Africa, then that is from the equator to Cape Town. The former president of Masisi on the 23rd of September in New York corrected me in an interview I ran with him. And he said, no, we've got 200,000 too many. But we need to realize that these animals either find a new home or they will be culled. There are no other options. People talking about contraception and birth control and God knows whatever else have no idea how they're going to do that logistically, what they're going to destroy in the process. It's completely off the planet with these people, unrealistic, probably sitting in Europe and North America and dreaming about a world down here that simply does not exist. And I coined the phrase of saying we, 2,500 people, should be thinking about where to find other areas in Africa where agriculture does not work. And there will be more and more areas of this nature, of this description, whilst we have drought occurring more and more through climate change. And we should take these elephants and we should translocate them there, build new national parks in areas where humans and cattle can't live, but wildlife can. Therefore, don't destroy the land to use it for human or cattle consumption. Bring in our excess lions, excess impala, excess God knows whatever else there, and create new worlds for our wildlife. The sustainable utilization model, the hunting model, creates excess animals. And the people that are against us don't want to hear it because it's no good for the story they're trying to tell their donors. But the reality is, it is true. I've got too much of just about everything. We are hunting. 75% of all wildlife areas south of the equator need hunting, the income from hunting in some form to survive. If we pull hunting as an income, either major or minor, these areas will collapse in a short period of time as the cash flow will not be sufficient to sustain. So let's build new areas. But there was not
You can't build new areas today, Willy. We're not living in a sea of habitat anymore with pockets of humanity. We're living in a sea of humanity with pockets of habitat. Like you just said, you can't expand Sango, you can't expand Save.
If you look at areas, certain parts of Zimbabwe, if you look at and fly across Zimbabwe all the time, there are still huge areas where I think you can. If you look at Mozambique, there are large areas in the northern half of Mozambique where you could certainly repopulate and have some of the people earn a living, earn an income, and do it in a format that enhances conservation of wildlife and habitat, and, if you will, puts a stop to the deterioration due to climate change. I believe there are enough areas in Africa we can do it. And frankly, with the monies that are available, specifically in North America, you can translocate these elephants. I mean, I have an offer out to move 400 elephants from my place within an area of 3,000 kilometers, a radius, sorry, not an area, or 3 days of travel, I'll pay for it. And I know how much it's going to cost, and it is achievable. It is doable. Nobody has any takers because all the existing places are overpopulated. The new places will not be.
Yeah, and even I would say that
there are those areas.
Yeah, there's places, but also it's a laudable, hey, I've got 400 excess elephants. Come get them. I'll pay for them. But to move them to 400 elephants, to move them, say, to Angola from you is prohibitively expensive, Willy. Like that is.
I would say you're probably looking at $1.5 million.
I was going to say $10.5 million.
No. Look, for me to move about 1,000 kilometers, including capture, is probably no more than $2,500 per elephant. We've done these things before,
Okay.
800, 900 kilometers and whatever. Look, Robbie, the question is, of course, road capabilities. I mean, 3,000 kilometers sounds great. If it's all dirt tracks, then
if it's
the
the
3
road
days are
between
over.
Bulawayo and Vic Falls at this current stage, you're in problems.
Yeah. No, that's, but and even that may be a positive one compared to some of the other stuff that you might find in Angola. But remember, Angola has a problem also. I mean, you've got the landmine issue, which hasn't been resolved. So the last thing we want to do is move a couple of thousand elephants or a couple of hundred elephants and have them blown up by landmines. That can't be the purpose of what we're doing here. That's a big issue. Now, I understand Botswana is moving some elephants there. Of course, they have a distance advantage to me. But I could go to Mozambique.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Willy, I want your opinion, though. So, I think that a lot of people are facing, I say a lot of areas are facing what you're facing. And that's, again, why I was talking the way that I was talking. We've seen it in the news. We've seen Madikwe in the news. We've seen Kruger National Park in the news. Yeah. Sango is a, smaller version of Kruger. Let's just call it that. And in my opinion, you've got two options. You've got the option that Kruger is going, which is they're going to go to a density-dependent elephant model, which is elephants will self-regulate themselves, and Mother Nature and habitat will self-regulate over time. Whether that's to the detriment of other species, other habitats, other vegetation, if there's enough space based on the science, they should move around with water dependence and yada, yada, yada. That's model number one. Model number two is a management model, which is Willy is saying, I need to get rid of 400 elephants on my property, right? But you're going to have to do 400 elephants again in 10 years' time.
Oh,
and then again.
Shorter than that. Oh, yeah.
You're going to have to continue. There's no way. You're going to have to make a decision like, okay, we need 250, like you've said. We need 250 elephants. But I have to keep it at 250.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
how do you do that?
Well, let me first of all answer option number one or model number one that you talk about. And I know certain people who in Kruger National Park who are advocating that. It's a suicidal plan. The last thing that'll die in that process are probably the lions and the hyenas just before the elephants succumb, because you will destroy the entire habitat. I know of what I speak. I'm watching it every time I'm on Sango. The damage is palpable. The damage is there, and you're doing the damage not for the elephants. Oh, they're destroying their own habitat, but they're destroying everything else with it. Once that ship has turned over, and the keel is sticking up, to turn that ship around and salvage it is almost impossible. So if you allow the elephants to regulate themselves, whilst we are regulating their area by fences around it and habitat around it, that's a dumb move. I mean, I always say Sango is like a little country. It's like I'm playing, no blasphemy intended, I'm playing a little god here. Okay? But for better and for worse. We have put a fence around it, not Sango, but the Save Valley Conservancy. Why? To allow land use on the outside, as horribly inefficient and how shall I say, ecologically and agriculturally unsustainable that is, but to allow the local population to carry on doing what they're doing, and us doing what we're doing, exchanging protein by hunting our animals and giving them some of our protein, for providing labor for them. They may be producing some produce for us, etc., all the rest of it. That's how it works. But it's not the preferred situation. In the olden days, these elephants would have just wandered somewhere else. They can't do that because humanity out there would be trampled to pieces. You can't do that. So, we're back to where we are. We have interfered, so now we need to manage. We need to manage our own interference. We are the cause of the problem, not the elephants. We are the people who caused the issue. So there is no doubt at all that in my book, we either translocate and find other homes, or we cull, or we only cull. And in that case, if you look at the whole of the Save Valley Conservancy with 2,600 elephants, 130 come in every year. So unless you are taking a hit of culling at least 1,000 in one go to get it, to put it down, you would otherwise, if you were to do a compound interest reverse calculation, you would have to take out 300 to 400 every year. And about 25 years, you would have that number to where you would be. But in the meantime, the destruction continues. No. We've got to there's a nuclear attack that needs to happen. And I don't know anybody, and I'm sure you and I are totally in the middle of all of this. I don't know anybody who doesn't hate the solution. But if you want to preserve what we've got for everything else, we need to take drastic actions. Why do we need to take it? We caused it.
Yeah, it's the same situation as Madikwe, right? So Madikwe has 1,500 elephants right now. And what is the solution? 125,000 acres, hectares, just like you guys.
They're twice as big as we are. Okay. Yeah. That's Sango. Yeah.
And there's only a couple of solutions here. One, leave it, right? Let the elephants keep knocking down their habitat, as you say, lots of things are going to not survive. And the things that will survive, the predators will survive. Elephants will eventually knock themselves down by 1,000 because they can't feed themselves, and we'll be back to this equilibrium that is needed because the area is fenced. Or, as you say, and you can't, so then another option is the other option is what you just said, a nuclear option. Take out 800 elephants. But if you do that, you have got to stand firm on the idea of this is what we're keeping it to. Because if you don't, history is going to repeat itself.
Very simple.
Okay?
It is very simple.
And so you can't just, as you say, you can't just like willy-nilly it. You can't just say, we'll translocate 50 this year. It's like putting, a bandage over a carotid artery that is being punctured.
Absolutely. I mean, I would do it. Anything will help. However, it's not the solution at all. I couldn't agree with you more. And for me, the story goes further. The ship will literally sink, because at the end of the day, nothing, because everything dies off, the predators, the carnivores, will grow until they will not even allow any breeding to take place. They're now more carnivores than you need. So all the young impalas, the young wildebeest and whatever, they get eaten up as it goes. The elephants are dead. So the carnivores are left. What are they going to do? They're going to die off because they too have no more food. So where does this take us? I find this such a horrible solution. I mean, I've come in here to conserve, the name of conservation, and or bring back and conserve what used to be. But it didn't come here to fence something in and to manage the total destruction thereof. That cannot be. And it doesn't help climate change or anything like it to fight it either, because we're now destroying habitat at a furious rate. And we're destroying jobs and the ability to feed the local population at a furious rate. Right now, my Western neighbors are coming in. The wildlife economy is finally sinking in. I say, so why you didn't want to come in for the last 20 years? We talked, I don't know how many times about, now you want to come. Well, Mr. Pabst, cattle doesn't work anymore. The cattle are dying. We've got no more food. I mean, no more water is normally not drinking water, but it's food growing. And we believe the wildlife economy, as you've always propagated, will help us. And the wildlife economy, as our scientists like, Brian Child and those people tell us, will create 4 times as much value as the raising of livestock for the local communities does. But it does include somewhere between 40 to 60% international hunting income. That's part and parcel of what we're doing. Of course, we're raising too many animals and we're successful in it. We may as well keep on hunting and bring that money back to protect what we've got and to help the local population and bring them in as partners and all the rest of it. That's all, from my point of view, the future that we have. But if we allow animals to go rampant and destroy themselves and their habitat, that whole model goes and the human beings will have no future. Livestock
Willy,
economy depends on it working.
Yeah. Willy, what is your opinion on how because let's be honest, the stumbling block to doing the things that we think we need to do, nuclear option of removing 800 elephants, would happen tomorrow if it wasn't for the very loud voice of those that are anti the activity, right? So how do we communicate the direness of what we're facing to the politicians that are like, oh, okay, shit, yeah. Even though their voices are loud, something has to happen. I guess that's the biggest question of everything, right?
I couldn't agree with you more. And I've started a dialogue through my friends and with my friends in the CIC. I've been funding the communication department there, and we're doing a lot more behind the scenes to reorganize and refund the CIC in Europe and the other countries, the 27 member countries. They're operating also within to get this message out. Now, that is a more than full-time job. The team that I have consists of 2 guys and I, and a little bit of a support here and there. And if you think about, you I'm sure are fully aware of the 20,000 elephants that are supposed to move into Berlin as compliments of former President Masisi, and we were very involved in that. Okay, Masisi didn't do this on its own. We had 1.9 billion, not million, 1.9 billion clicks out of that. It changed the narrative in Europe. It eliminated all reference to trophy importation bans in the red and the green party manifestos in Germany. We're now working on Westminster to get those guys to rethink and do whatever and fly one or two of those people out to Sango, God knows what. And people are now becoming more and more aware that the elephants are really an issue. And the issue is we created that problem. We need to find a solution. And the solution is you over there need to be accepting of either us culling and or you help us fund new areas where these animals can be translocated to, areas that are currently not under any particular management as and suitable for wildlife, areas where wildlife is welcomed by the local population, not what IFOR has done in Malawi, moved 256 elephants from A to B, 10 people dead, and they are raking in wonderful money from their sponsors. That, to me, is highway robbery and murder. And then IFOR is a criminal organization. So there you go. But so from my point of view, you've hit the nail on the head. It's the whole PR story. Now look at me. Do I care? Do I look as if I care? I will do it. I don't care the consequences. Why? The only income that I really have is hunting. The hunters do understand. The hunters are conservationists. They are ecologists. They're appreciators of nature to a degree. that obviously the IFOS and the Born Trees of this world dislike, but they are the real experts in what we're trying to do here, and they will support me. I won't lose a single penny worth of income. Not that that income covers Sango's cost by even a third, but be that as it may. So I will do it. I have no issue. We have a permit to cull 600 elephants. Now, if you want to cull 600 elephants, I don't know whether you've ever been on a cull. That's a substantial exercise, in particular if you also want to harvest the meat, which is obviously what we want, the hides and all the rest of it, because somehow this thing needs to pay for itself, and some of the proceeds, as in meat and whatever, needs to go to the local population, etc., etc. That is an exercise. That isn't easy, because these elephants are not going to fall over on a tar road where my refrigeration truck with
100%.
white-clad surgeons come in and carve out what is necessary.
Yep.
No. That's a complex situation and a complex operation. We have a meeting on Sango in 3 weeks from now to talk through what we do and how we're going to do
that. That's going to make world news, I would say. But it's necessary. It's almost like the thing that has to happen. Like, what else do you want us to do? Do you want everything else to die? Do you want the whole ecosystem to collapse?
Give me a destination.
Correct.
Give me a destination. I'll bring him somewhere. You, IFOR, bring me the money. We will fly them with Tupolefs from whatever. I'll build you the runway. Minus 1,500 meters, I make it 2,500 meters. You can fly these things in and out, whatever you want to do. But we need to do something. And in the meantime, I can't wait for the next 10 years for somebody to make up their mind that they're going to take 1,000. We need to move. We need to put a big dent into what we've got here, and that is today, not tomorrow. We've waited too long is actually the responsibility that I have on my shoulders to live with. We have lived with it too long and hoped that something was going to happen. We were at national parks last week and said, well, I'd like to move 400 elephants. And said, well, so would we. Would you take some? We said, no, we're going to actually give them to you. And they can't. So not at all. National parks can't take them anywhere in Zimbabwe. We could go to Mozambique, but that would be a holistic approach where you need a new area, a new national park, and all the rest of it. And you need to make sure that the local population lives with it. The government in Mozambique is mortally afraid of the human-wildlife conflict, and rightly so. So, but there are ways of doing this. We are fighting a war of survival with regards to our habitats, our large areas of conservation in Africa, south of the equator. If we don't find a solution for the elephants, our habitats will collapse. It's not a question. It's only a question of when.
Well, Willy, it's quite astute that you say, the Mozambique government is deathly afraid of human-wildlife conflict tied to elephants. Well, we have obviously an example right now in the news of IFOR's movement of, 250-something elephants into Kasungu National Park.
Oh, that's the Malawi thing I referred to, yep.
Yeah, and, none of the, local communities were consulted. What is your opinion? Do you want to live with these things or not?
Robbie, it is grossly irresponsible. I mean, they have broken all the rules of how to move animals from A to B. We've done it. I've been involved and funded to a fair degree. 7 translocations, out of which we moved twice 200 elephants. I know of what I speak. And first of all, you need to figure out how you're going to capture them, where you're going to drug them, where you're going to stage your trucks and all the rest of it. It's quite an operation to do that. How do you separate a family, because you only capture families? You don't want a big bull in there because it destroys everything. So that alone is an issue. Then you go to your destination, you check habitat. Not you and I, the ecologists go in there, and maybe 2 ecologists. Then you go with regards to security. Are these animals secure? Are they safe? Are there poachers? If not, is there an anti-poaching unit? And then last and definitely not least, you go in and say, what is the effect on the local population? And what does the local population gain from us doing this? And will they accept it? And they've done practically none of that. They move from A to B, the PR, here we go. You've got another man who does something similar. You've heard of this guy, Derek Joubert?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Didn't he want to be engaged with you guys with the Great Plains Initiative to move a bunch of...
I threw him out after 100 elephants or 400 he was going to move. I was no longer going to sustain his lies in the media, and I made it very clear in a press release that he's off my property. Can't do that. I don't mind somebody
Didn't
being...
he want your animals? He wanted your animals for a big translocation, but then threw hunting under the bus with regards to
exactly
how the wildlife actually got there, right?
He slandered us to a degree where we're completely unacceptable, although we agreed otherwise beforehand. But Robbie, worse, he goes to his donors. It sells these elephants moved for $10,000 a pop. It cost us $2,300 to move them. So $7,700 was his profit, and probably not taxable. Yep, that sounds good. Well, it's a rip-off of your donors. You're giving them this whole entire bullshit story, which is pack of lies. If you are of a different opinion to me, that's not an issue. You and I can deal with this. But can we have this based on facts? The world of fake news just drives me absolutely insane, and I deal with facts. Political correctness? No. Only if it is factually correct. I will call you a shithead if I have the facts to prove it up. Otherwise, of course, I wouldn't. And in your case, I definitely wouldn't anyway.
Well, I would prove that you are incorrect with facts.
Oh, here we go. Anyway, so, there you have it in a nutshell. It is the biggest challenge facing us, are elephants right now.
Yeah.
And of course, everything that falls from it, the social media, the shitstorms and all the rest of it, but we will have to face them. We will have to cull 200,000 elephants to just get back to base. Never mind, the progeny thereafter. We don't have the space to hold them. And people who are out there, we used to have 10 million, we used to have 1 million. Yes, but you who are complaining are part of the species, namely Homo sapiens, who encroached on the habitat, not the hunter that causes any damage to those elephants. If it wasn't for hunting, for income, and our ability to fund the protection of these animals,
there'd be way less space.
Way less space. Kenya, as you know, is the prime example of where it's all gone pear-shaped completely. A negative example of note.
Willy, given this conversation, and to wrap things up, are you confident? Are you positive about the future of wildlife management, wildlife conservation, hunting?
Yes.
Why?
Absolutely. There are always solutions. First of all, you're talking to an optimist. I'm not a pessimist, never have been. I'm also somebody who takes risks. My standard phrase is A, kill them with facts and with kindness. And B, I'm not in this world to be loved. I'm here to succeed in my goals and objectives. And since my goals and objectives are normally socially and environmentally acceptable, I'm not a hard-nosed capitalist. I'm a capitalist, but not a hard-nosed capitalist. I like to live in harmony with my neighbors, because it helps my survival too. It's the thing that you do as a modern businessman. We will find solutions here. The world will wake up to what we're talking about. There are organizations out there. I mean, I've just been asked to join the ICCF, for example. If the International Conservation Caucus Foundation, I mean, they're raising $500 million in one go. I mean, they are. And if I'm talking about moving a fair part of 200,000 elephants to a new area, sorry, not a new era. Maybe that is a new era on top of the area. But, that from my point of view is money that can be raised. We can do that. And all the other animals. How many giraffes would you like? How many lions would you like? I'll give you. Give you a pack of wildlife. I might give you some of my hyenas, etc., etc., etc. We can do all of that. Wildlife, as funded largely by sustainable hunting, sustainable utilization, is a highly successful model in Africa. And frankly, if we are not successful, the wildlife economy will fail. The wildlife economy, which lives to 40 to 60% in value creation out of international hunting, it will no longer be able to feed the population who can, in today's world, as we go forward with our drought situation, no longer feed themselves. And I mean, Namibia is going to lose 65% of its grazing area in the next 35 years. So how are those people going to live? They're going to live off the wildlife economy. If we fail in the wildlife economy, all of these people are going to die.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
They
well
won't.
said. Well said. Well said. Willy, it's always a pleasure, my man. That was a quick 45 minutes, and I'm sure we could speak for hours.
Absolutely. We
but
need to. There's a fire, a red wine, and a couple of cigars waiting, mate.
I look
So
forward to it, my friend.
we
I
need
look
to
forward
go.
to it.
When do I see you next?
I don't know. We've got a conflict.
You're not going to be at the CIC thing, are you?
No,
in
because
Doha?
there's a conflict with IOTR.
Okay. Yeah.
But we'll make a plan. I'm going to be in Africa a couple of times this year, and I'll ping you. I've got your number, I believe. If I don't, I'll get it after this podcast is
No, I
finished.
think you do. You do.
And I'll just ping you a text and say, I'm coming in. Are you around? And if you are, then we'll figure something out.
No, that gives me enough time to put on my camouflage and hide somewhere. Yeah, that's good. Okay. Good, my mate. Thank you very much.
Thanks, my mate.